everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my TBRs for the 4 readathons that I plan to take part in the month of December. So, I have decided to participate in 4 separate readathons in the month of December, and after the crazy Believe-a-thon I've had, maybe that is biting off way more than I can chew, but I'm going to give it a try. And the reason I'm combining these videos is I've tried to make as much crossover with them as I possibly can. That way, I don't have an insanely bloated TBR that would be impossible to complete unless all I did for the entire month was read. So, I'm going to go through each TBR separately, but you'll see where the crossover comes in. The first one I'm going to start with is Merry Bookmas, which is hosted by Kaylani, Clint, and Mel. And the info for all of the readathons will be linked in the description below. So if you want to know who any of these booktubers are or what the readathons are about, it'll all be in the description box below, so check that out. So Merry Bookmas has 12 prompts and it runs for the entire month of December. I have a book for each of the 12 prompts, so let's jump in. Prompt 1, Chosen One. And for this, I'm reading Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan and adapted by Robert Venditti. So this is the graphic novel version of Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, and obviously Percy Jackson is a chosen one. And I really enjoyed this series, so I'm excited to see how the graphic novels play out. Plus, they're pretty thin and graphic novels, and I thought that would be helpful given the amount of books that I would like to get to in the month of December, whether they're on a TBR or not. Prompt number 2 is Second Chance. So there's lots of ways you can interpret it. The title could be second chance. You could be giving an author a second chance or a book a second chance. You could read about a second chance romance or friendship. But the way I decided to do it is to read The A to Z of Everything by Debbie Johnson. And this follows 2 sisters who are estranged. And after their mother dies, she leaves them letters, each starting with a different letter of the alphabet, and sends them on a quest with the hope that they will give their relationship a second chance. This is a reread for me, and I remember really enjoying it the first time, and I've wanted to go back and reread it as, like I said, I can really remember enjoying it. And in December, I like to do rereads anyways, so I thought this would be perfect for Second Chance because it's all about this mom wanting her daughters to give their relationship a second chance. Prompt 3, Bookception. And I believe it was Clint who mentioned that you could also read a book that had fan fiction in it, and so I went with Flashfire by TJ Klune. This is the second book in the Extraordinary series, and one of our main characters likes to write fan fiction. And the description says, I'm not spoiling it, I'm only going to read the sentence, but it says, which is a lot to handle when Nick really just wants to finish his self-insert bakery alternate universe fanfic. So obviously our main character Nick is still writing fanfic in this book, so I think that counts for Bookception. I'm really excited to dive back into this series and find out what happens with these characters in book 2. Prompt number 4 is Friends or Enemies to Lovers. And for this, I'm going to be reading One Tough Christmas Cookie by Lucy McConnell. And the description talks about a guy named Caleb. He helps to take care of one of Santa's premier reindeers, and the vet they usually go to is laid up in the hospital. And unfortunately, that means he has to work with his cantankerous daughter. And of course, he would much rather be working with the dad, who is an easier person to work with. And it sounds like the daughter does not like the reindeer farm that Caleb is in charge of, which is where Santa gets his reindeer. And I think that's where the enemies to lovers comes in, is that they're going to fall in love, but Caleb would much rather be working with her dad. And she wishes she didn't have to do anything with this reindeer farm because it's taken up so much of her father's time. So I think that's going to be enemies to lovers, and I'm really looking forward to checking this out, as I like to read Christmassy books at Christmas time, so I was excited to get this on my TBR. Prompt number 5, Small Towns. For this, I'm going to be reading Slashing Through the Snow by Jacqueline Frost. This is the 3rd book in the Christmas Tree Farm mystery series, and the Christmas Tree Farm mystery series is set in a small town like most cozy mysteries. And basically in this series, we're following a woman named Holly whose family runs a Christmas tree farm, and mysteries tend to ensue there, mostly dead bodies, and Holly has to figure out who actually committed the crime and clear whoever's name because it somehow always connects back to her. Or at least it did in the first 2 books. I've really enjoyed this series. I read the first 2 really close together, I think at the beginning of the year. And they gave me such Christmassy vibes that I'm really excited to read this one because I figure I'm going to get the same Christmassy vibes from this one. So Very excited to get this on my TBR. Prompt 6, games/competition. And so for this, I'm going with the Quillian Games, which is the 7th book in the Pendragon series. And I don't think I've read this one, maybe. But I feel like I remember reading the description at the very least at some point, and with it called the Quillian Games, I believe there is some sort of contest or tournament in it. So I'm going to be reading this for the games/competition prompt. And Pendragon is basically a series that follows a boy named Bobby Pendragon whose Uncle Press asks him for help, which he quickly agrees to, but does not expect to be dragged to a whole different world and find out that an evil entity named Saint Dane is threatening not just these other worlds that his Uncle Press has introduced him to, but Bobby's own world itself. I've really enjoyed this series, and I'm looking forward to checking out book 7 and seeing if it's a reread, and I just don't remember any of the details, or getting to experience the story for the very first time. Prompt 7 is retelling, and so for this, I'm going to be reading Daughter of the Deep by Rick Riordan. This is a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea retelling from what I know of it. I literally don't know anything more than that, other than that I know I like Rick Riordan's writing because I've read enough of his books, so I'm kind of going into this blind other than that because 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea retelling, which I haven't read, and Rick Riordan's writing is enough to sell me, so I'm looking forward to checking this out. Editing Chris here. So I completely missed one of the prompts. So I'm here to insert that. Prompt 8, fake dating. And for this, I'm going to be reading Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellafleur. And according to Goodreads, it says, after a disastrous blind date, Darcy Lowell is desperate to stop her well-meaning brother from playing matchmaker ever again. Love and the inevitable heartbreak is the last thing she wants, so she fibs and says her latest setup was a success. Darcy doesn't expect her lie to bite her in the ass. Elle Jones, one of the astrologers behind the popular Twitter account Oh My Stars, dreams of finding her soulmate, but she knows it is most assuredly not Darcy, a no-nonsense stick-in-the-mud who is way too analytical, punctual, and skeptical for someone as free-spirited as Elle. When Darcy's brother and Elle's new business partner expresses how happy he is that they hit it off, Elle is baffled. Was Darcy on the same date? Because awkward. When Darcy begs Elle to play along, she agrees to pretend they're dating to save face, but with a few conditions. Darcy must help Elle navigate her own overbearing family over the holidays, and their arrangement expires on New Year's Eve. The last thing they expect is to develop real feelings during a fake relationship. But maybe opposites can attract when true love is written in the stars. So this sounded really interesting, and it sounds like a Christmassy kind of romance with a fake dating trope, and I like the fake dating trope a lot of times, so I'm really looking forward to checking this out. And now back to earlier today, Chris, who was filming right after they got up in the morning, and probably shouldn't have done that because they made a lot of mistakes. Prompt number 7, close quarters. One of these suggestions that Kaylani mentioned in her announcement video was One by One by Ruth Ware. And I don't want to know any more than that going into this. I have really wanted to get to this book, and it looks like it's going to have like snowy, wintry vibes, which is exciting. And this was one of the recommendations she had for close quarters, so I'm going to count it and check it out in the month of December. Prompt 10, Found Family. And for this, I'm going to be reading Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan. I'm going to be reading the graphic novel version. The library just got it in and has it held for me, so I don't have my hands on the physical copy yet. But like with Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, I'm really curious to see what the graphic novel version of this book looks like. And again, quick, easy read. And I definitely consider Percy Jackson and the friends he makes to be a found family. So I'm really excited to see if the graphic novel is as good as the full-length novel. Prompt 11 is royalty. And so for this, I'm going to be reading The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. And obviously, one of the main characters is a prince. This is another graphic novel, so I'm hoping it'll be a quick read, and I am excited to find out more about this prince, as he likes to put on daring dresses and take Paris by storm as the fabulous Lady Cristalla, the hottest fashion icon in the world capital of fashion. So I'm going to be very curious to see what it's like for this prince who has a kind of secret thing that he does at night that I highly doubt his parents know about. So really looking forward to checking this one out, and I've heard good things about it. And prompt 12 is Animal Companion. And for this prompt, you can read the group book, which I will get to in a second because that's what I plan to do. But if you aren't interested in the group book, you can read any of the author's other books, or you can read any book that has an animal companion. And the group read is The Accidental Apprentice by Amanda Foody. And the description says, the last thing Barclay Thorne ever wanted was an adventure. Thankfully, as an apprentice to the town's mushroom farmer, Barclay need only work hard and follow the rules to one day become the head mushroom farmer himself. No danger required. But then Barclay accidentally breaks his town's most sacred rule. Never, ever, ever stray into the woods. For within the woods lurk vicious magical beasts. To Barclay's horror, he faces a fate far worse than being eaten. He unwittingly bonds with a beast and is run out of town by an angry mob. Determined to break this bond and return home, Barclay journeys to find the mysterious town of lore keepers, people who have also bonded with beasts and share their power. So I'm excited to check that one out and see if this is a series I would like to continue. So this is most of my TBR for Merry Bookmas, and now I'm going to move on to the next readathon. So the second readathon I'm taking part in is the Create Your Own Holiday Adventure, which runs from the 6th through the 19th, and this is hosted by Tia and Chloe. Again, information will be in the description below. So basically, there are 9 prompts, and they are separated into 3 categories, and it's you are, with 3 options for who you are, spending the holidays, and 3 locations of where you're spending the holidays, and then where you find, which is what you find in this location you're spending the holidays. So you have to read the books in order of the prompts, and I plan to do all 3 paths, and these are the books I've chosen for the prompts and the path that I've chosen. So I'm going to look at my notes here to make sure I get this right. My first path is that I am a chef in a small town where I find love. For chef, you have to read a book with a food element, and I'm going to be reading Cat's Cafe by Matt Tarpley, and this is literally set in Cat's Fae. And we get to see Penguin, who has a coffee problem, Rabbit, whose anxiety sometimes overwhelm him, Axolotl, whose confidence inspires his friends, and the always supportive cat, who provides hot drinks made with love and a supportive ear for anyone's troubles. So I'm saying this has a food element because it's going to be taking place in a cafe. And again, graphic novel makes things a little bit easier and is easier to get through. Then, as my chef is spending their holidays in a small town, I will be reading Slashing Through the Snow. As you know from earlier in the video, this is, again, set in a small town. Most cozy mysteries are, so I will be reading this for that prompt. As you can see, I'm starting to double up. And my chef is hanging out in a small town, and they find love by reading One Tough Christmas Cookie. Because for that prompt, you need to read a romance. So, again, I'm assuming our main characters are going to fall in love, so that is path number 1, along with One Tough Cookie. For my second path, I'm going to be a single parent who is spending the holidays in an exotic location where I find mystery. So for single parent, you need to read a book with a character who's a single parent. And for this, I'm going to be reading Flashfire by TJ Klune, as our main character, Nick, is being raised by just his dad. So therefore, he is a single parent. And I know, at least in the first book, his dad was definitely involved in the story a bit. So I'm assuming in the second one, we will also see Nick's dad. For exotic location, I need to read a book in a warm location, and for this, I'm going to read Clause for Alarm by Kate Conti, and this is the 5th book in a mystery series where we're following Maddie, who runs a cafe on her family's island home, and based on the looks of things, it looks like it's going to be summer, so I'm assuming it's going to be warm there. Now, I'm stretching this a little bit because I'm not reading about, like, the Bahamas or something. I don't know exactly where this island is set, but if memory serves, I feel like I've read one in winter where there is snow, so it's not warm there all the time. But I think this is going to be set at a warm location, so I'm going to count it. And then for mystery, I need to read a book with a mystery, and for this, I'm going to be reading The Secrets of Winter House by Ben Guterson. This is the 2nd book in the Winter House mystery series, and it's a mystery. In the first book, we meet Elizabeth, whose aunt and uncle have sent her to spend her Christmas holidays at the Winter House Hotel. And once there, she meets the owner, Norbridge Falls, and discovers that there is a giant mystery surrounding this hotel and begins to try to solve it. And the adventures continue in book 2. This is another reread for me, and I'm really excited to be reading this series closer together. So I was really excited to get this on my TBR. So this is my TBR for my single parent who is spending the holidays in an exotic location where I find mystery. And my last path is going to be I am royalty, who is spending the holidays in the big city where I find family. So for royalty, I need to read a book that features royalty, and I'm going to be reading The Prince and the Dressmaker because the prince is royalty. For big city, I need to read a book that's set in a big city. And for this, I'm going to be reading The Guncle. And this book is set, I believe, in Palm Springs. Because we're following Patrick, who ends up having to take care of his niece and nephew who are 6 and 9. And it says that he loves spending time with them when they come out to Palm Springs for week-long visits. So I think he lives in Palm Springs, and that is a city I've heard of, and I'm pretty sure, at least compared to small town, it's a bigger city. So I may be stretching it a little because it's not like New York City or Chicago, but I'm going to count this for the big city prompt. And then for family, you have to read a book with family vibes, and for this, I'm going to be reading Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters. Again, there's a lot of found family in that series, and it definitely gives you family vibes, and if you've read it, you know exactly why. So I'll be reading the graphic novel version of Sea of Monsters. So this, along with Sea of Monsters, is my TBR for the path of royalty who spends their holidays in a big city and finds family. So this is most of my TBR for the Create Your Own Holiday Readathon. So the next readathon I want to talk about is the Festive Readathon, which is hosted by Steph. Again, links in the description below. And this will be held from the 6th through the 12th. And there is a bingo board, which I'll pop up here. So basically, there are a couple that aren't bookish related, like watch a festive movie and do an act of self-care, which I also plan to do. But let's jump into the prompts that I have to complete. So for festive word in the title, I'm going to be reading One Tough Christmas Cookie by Lucy McConnell. This has obviously got the word Christmas in the title, and that counts as my festive word. For red or green on the cover, I'm going to be reading Nutcracked by Susan Adrian, and obviously the cover is mainly green, but the Nutcracker is red, so it actually has red and green on the cover. And I believe this is a Nutcracker retelling, and it's on the shorter side and it's middle grade, and I have been saving this for the festive season as it has Christmassy vibes, so I'm looking forward to checking this one out. For illustrated cover, you need to read a cover that is illustrated, and for this I will be reading Cat's Cafe, because obviously the cover is illustrated. And again, graphic novel, short, should be easy to get through. For snow on the cover, I'm going to be reading One by One by Ruth Ware, and as you can see, there's snow all over the cover, so definitely think that counts. Read an anticipated book. For this, I'm going to be reading Willowdean by Katherine Applegate. I read Crenshaw by her earlier this year and absolutely loved it, so I've been highly anticipating this since I saw it, actually before I'd even read Crenshaw, but reading Crenshaw just made me even more excited. And the inside says, Willowdean adores creatures of all kinds, but her favorite are the most unlovable beasts in the land, strange beasts known as screechers. The villagers or perchance call them pests, even monsters, but Willowdean believes the animals serve a vital role in the complicated web of nature. Lately, though, nature has seemed angry indeed. Perchance has been cursed with fires and mudslides, droughts and fevers, and even the annual migration of hummingbears. A source of local pride and income has dwindled. For as long as anyone can remember, the tiny animals have overwintered in shimmering bubble nests perched atop blue willow trees, drawing tourists from far and wide. This year, however, not a single hummingbear has returned to Perchance, and no one knows why. When a handmade birthday gift brings unexpected magic to Willowdean and her new friend Connor, she's determined to speak up for the animals she loves, and perhaps even uncover the answers to the mystery of the missing hummingbears. So if this is anywhere near as good as Crenshaw, I'm going to absolutely love it. Plus, I think the cover is super cute, and I am definitely looking forward to checking this one out. And the last prompt is set in winter, and for this, I'm going to be reading Slashing Through the Snow, as these books tend to be set at Christmas time, and I believe this is no exception. Yeah, it mentions the short December days turn even darker when they find a dead body in the gift-wrapped toy donation box. So yes, I think this is going to be another Christmassy mystery, so definitely set in winter. So along with One Tough Christmas Cookie, this is my TBR for the Festive Readathon, and I will be reading these books between the 6th and the 12th. So wish me luck, because it's a pretty deep TBR, but if you spent any time on my channel, you know that it is totally doable for me. And the last readathon I plan to take part in the month of December is Sprintathon, which is hosted by Press, and again, links in the description below. This readathon is taking place between the 13th and the 19th, and there is a graphic for it, which I'll pop up here, and you have to do these things in order. So the first thing you have to do is make yourself a snack. Then you have to read a book you're excited about, and for this, I'm going to be reading Return to Roar by Jenny McLaughlin. This is the second book in the, I think it's called Roar series, and in the first book, we're following twins, I think it's Arthur and Rose? Yes. Arthur and Rose, who find out after their grandfather is kidnapped that the make-believe land that they created when they were kids is actually real, and they have to go to that land to rescue their grandfather. And this is the sequel, and I absolutely love the first book, so I am super excited to finally be able to sit down and read the sequel. Then you must participate in one of Pris's sprints, which I do all the time. Maybe not always when they're live, but I absolutely watch them back, and they have been invaluable to me, as I don't think I would have gotten through my Believeathon TBR if it hadn't been for Pris's sprints. So if you love sprints, you should definitely check out Pris's channel, which is linked in the description below. Then you need to read a book that intimidates you, and for this I'm going to be reading 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne, which is why I knew nothing about Daughter of the Deep when I talked about it earlier, because I knew I was going to try to squeeze in the story that it was based on first. And classics always intimidate me. There will never ever be a classic book that does not intimidate me because, well, they're classics, and sometimes the writing style can be hard to gel with and get through because of the way it's written. I'm always intimidated by reading classics because I never know what to expect, and I legitimately know nothing about this book. I've heard about it, and I'm going to assume it involves being under the sea, but I know nothing else about it. But if Daughter of the Deep is based on this book, then I would really like to read this book first before I get into that one. So I will be reading 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea this month. Then I need to read a book that is less than 300 pages, and for this I'm going to be reading A Kind of Spark by Elle McNichol. And this said, "Speak, even if it's quiet. Ever since Miss Murphy told us about the witch trials that happened centuries ago right here in Juniper, I can't stop thinking about them. Those people weren't magic. They were like me, different like me. I'm autistic. I see things that others do not. I hear sounds that they can ignore. And sometimes I feel things all at once. I think about the witches with no one to speak for them. Not everyone in our small town understands. Not Jenna, who used to be my best friend, not Nina, my older sister, but if I keep trying, maybe someone will. I won't let the witches be forgotten because there is more to their story, just like there is more to mine." And I think this clocks in at like 171 pages, so definitely well under the 300 page mark. And I have heard great things about this book, including from people like Jade from JD Ray Reads, I'll link her channel below, who don't really like contemporary, and was pleasantly surprised that they enjoyed this book as much as she did. So if someone like Jade, who doesn't like contemporary, is even speaking highly of this book, it makes me even more excited to check it out. So I'm really glad I managed to get this on my TBR. So this is my TBR for Sprintathon. So those are all of the readathons I'm taking part in the month of December. It was very tricky trying to figure them all out and plan when I was going to read what, because I couldn't read books for Pris's readathon at the same time I was reading books for Steph's readathon because they were different weeks. That was definitely tricky, and I was trying to line up as many of the prompts from the Create Your Own Holiday readathon with Pris's readathon and Steph's readathon as I could, because they all run at the same time. So those 2 weeks are going to be crazy. So you'll have to look out for my vlogs for those, because the mental maneuvering I'm going to have to do to read everything I need to read in those weeks is going to be just insane. So that's some of the books I'm reading in the month of December. Are you participating in any readathons? If so, let me know what they are and what you're reading for them in the comments section below. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a penguin emoji. There has to be a penguin emoji. Otherwise, just leave me another cute wintry animal emoji if there's not a penguin. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!